I would entertain a motion to approve the previous minutes.
So moved.
Second. Motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm also aye. At this point, I'll turn it over to, do we need to approve the agenda?
No.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Mr. Boyer and Mr. Reynolds.
Give you just a hot second to sit
Sorry.
down, Mr. Anderson.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I think we're ready. Tom,
Ready?
I guess you want to lead us on this
All right.
journey.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for taking the meeting. We don't have anything to vote on, no approvals, unless y'all bring up something I'm not anticipating. But we do want to update you because it has been a good while since we had our last meeting. And we have accomplished a great deal, although we did have a period of hiatus with the hurricane that kind of slowed us down. But we'll talk about that and review how that impacts our rollout schedule for the system. I thought it would be good just to once again confirm what the objectives of our communication infrastructure project are. We are in the midst of installing and will be operating state-of-the-art 911 first responder radio and paging system. We will be improving wireless phone and internet services in the western half of the county. I will also say that really should say countywide on internet. You'll find out in a few minutes why. We'll continue to work with broadband vendors to expand the fiber and wireless options across the county. And we plan to accomplish this stated objective within the projected budget that y'all reviewed and approved about a year ago. The first item is a blank sheet, I think, in your pile of papers called Progress Report 911 System and Cellular. We have two broadband vendors who have continued to work on filling out a network in our county since Gigabeam didn't leave the county, but certainly we're not sure what they're up to and have had no progress reports on that. Citizens Co-op, which is out of Floyd County, is involved in extending services in the eastern part of the county. Sky Best, which is actually a North Carolina co-op out of West Jefferson, North Carolina, has had fiber that crosses our county in mouth of Wilson and also in Rugby. And we're working with them to develop a plan to extend that fiber coverage. Now, with them, I would think we'll be lucky if we pick up 125 homes. Citizens Co-op, however, has the opportunity to pick up about 200 through their operational plans that they're just beginning to execute on. We have had 3 other companies that have requested support letters from us for BEAD funding, as have Citizens and Sky Best. And we know that the state has some BEAD money, although the feds have not released the bulk of the money yet. And there are supposedly 5 companies that have requested money to help build out fiber networks in our county. It's interesting to me that when I inquired about that, I found out the DHCD required all of the vendors to sign NDAs, and they cannot tell anybody what they've been awarded until DHCD decides to do it at the end of June. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes, sir.
So if they're applying to be service providers in our counties and the county's not aware of it, what infrastructure are they going to use? Are they going to use the AEP infrastructure?
That's a good question. Because the last conversations, and Steve, I want to overstep the conversation that I had. You might want to fill in. But my last conversation was with DHCD was they were not in a position to determine whether other vendors could tie into AEP or not, because AEP had a contract with Gigabeam. But I do know there's been some back and forth on the status of the contracts between the state and Gigabeam. And I know that there was some political pressure applied to AEP to try to open that network up. But again, I have not been told a thing about whether it's going to be opened up.
But these are all middle mile
Yes.
folks?
No, these are all last mile.
Last mile folks.
Now, the good thing about Citizens Co-op, they actually have fiber running down Main Street out here. Right through
Can I
town.
ask, is that part of the wired road?
No. About 7 years ago, they applied for a grant to provide middle mile fiber and then in Floyd County to start last mile connections just for Floyd County. And they were approved and given money to run a fiber backbone from Floyd County to about 100 yards past Independence. And they were told you have to connect 80% of the people in Floyd County that are accessible before you can go outside of that to start taking advantage of that middle mile fiber. Within the past year, they surpassed that goal. They've connected like 83% of all the people in Floyd County. They've done a great job. And so the state released them and they started doing some projects in Carroll County, which their fiber runs through. And they started working on our eastern side between Independence and Galax. So that's their fiber. Sky Best has backbone fiber running up Rugby Road about 1,000 yards past the county line. And then they're in Mouth of Wilson about 3/4 of a mile across our line. Now, when that was done, the feds made a decision that prevented them from doing last mile connections because they somehow passed a regulation that basically said they could only work within the state of North Carolina. So there they sat with the fiber, no approval to connect on that fiber. But now that's been released. So that's what they would use, Mr. Chairman, and Citizens Co-op would use theirs. They have both applied for BEAD funding. And the beauty of BEAD funding is if, let's say I know that this building and 10 more buildings over the next mile have an interest in my service. If I can get the last person to commit to say, I'll buy it if you bring it to me, then I can run fiber the entire way and BEAD will pay for it. And then I start connecting people. And that's literally the way Citizens Co-op is currently connecting folks out of 58, out near River Road area.
So is it just off of 58 where they're connecting folks to Citizens?
Yeah, because their backbone runs right down 58, all the way from Galax to Independence.
So it goes all the way down 58?
Their fiber goes through Galax all the way through.
And
All the way
that's
through Carroll
underground?
County. No, some of it's underground, but a lot of it's on poles.
Okay. So how do you go about hooking up to that? Just call? Because
No.
I actually live there and I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Well, the interesting thing is, you call them and talk to them because they are trying to get citizen interest. As a matter of fact, we've sent letters. Mr. Boyer sent letters out to about 150 people, encouraging them to call them because they need people to express interest because that helps them get the funding they need to run the service. So
They're just interested in right off of 58.
currently.
Yeah.
Currently. But
What would be the catalyst for them to go into the hollers and go off of 58? It would have to be federal funding.
if I take you literally, hollers, nobody's gonna have an interest.
Yeah.
But if they can secure sufficient BEAD funding, they could go back and start infilling where our former vendor was supposed to provide coverage. Because the last count I've heard is they have about 550 customers in our county. Gigabit. They supposedly, with the technology AEP and the gigabit put in place, there were 3,000 households that could have been connected. And so they connected 1/6 of them. So my hope is, and we have filed with the state to encourage them, my hope is they're going to give BEAD money to let these other vendors start tapping in and extending it because there is capability there.
And they're going to be like competitive or one provider?
No, it'll be competitive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, because the BEAD money, they're literally taking counties and slicing them up.
So
And-
Sky West would be West End and Citizens would be
Yes.
East End, and
Yes.
they meet in the middle somewhere and.
Yeah.
Is that
Well,
a
and that-
gentleman's agreement?
Well, they do it by, what they consider, forgot that fancy term they use. There's a term they use, but basically they take a map and they identify by household all of these dots within an area. And that's what you're limited to. You can't serve anybody across the street if they're not in your quad.
What's the confidence level of any of this speed money coming downstream?
Well, vendors are not real encouraged.
I'm not encouraged.
Yeah, because it appears that the feds may back up and redo the strategy of how they deploy that money.
There's certainly a lot of discussion about how much is going to be collected. There's going to be a large amount clawed back on this. I just don't know how much it would be.
But, so the broadband is not dead, it's just moving slowly. I think the county has done all we can do to provide letters of support. I mean, we've told every vendor, if you want to start trying to service this area, we'll send letters to people. We'll make phone calls, we'll help set up meetings, we'll do whatever it takes to get you in front of those people. Because they have to get statements
That's
of
all we
interest.
can do.
That's it. That's all we can do.
How far off 58 can they go?
Right now, I know they're about 2,000 feet off of 58 on one road. And it's all limited by money. It's all limited by the amount of BEAD money they were given, initially. So if they could come up with some good federal funding, because the state really doesn't have it, if they could come up with some good federal funding, there really isn't a limit to what they could do.
I'm talking about the citizens that's coming up from Floyd. How far?
Yeah. Right now, they're about 2,000 feet off the road is their longest line they've run, because they got a guy that was interested and then they started backfilling. But to me, the interesting thing about this approach is instead of taking a whole area, they start taking roads literally and begin to incrementally advance their system. By identifying people further down the road, I want it and I'm here, so we build it and then we start tying people in along the way.
Mr. Eversley, BEAD money is federal money that is administered through the DHCD.
Yes.
So the DHCD wants to fund these projects, but they can't do it unless the federal dollars come through them.
Correct.
I should have known the answer to that question. I've been there with you, but I
Well,
forgot.
I mean, the state basically doesn't have the money required. I really, back to your question about Hollins, I really think probably the greatest advancement in internet is going to be in the western end when US Cellular cranks up their 5G. Because we'll be able to serve people that right now aren't even, there's no hope of getting fiber to them off of the current system. So, and as you'll see in a minute, Verizon is proposing to build a tower. And it's my understanding they're going to put 5G wireless and cell service on it.
And in Flat Ridge.
Yes. And that will be a huge advancement for the people.
I was going to
in that
ask
area.
why that's not on the map, because I remember that we could hang county equipment on that Verizon.
Yeah, it's on this one. We'll get to that in a minute, Mr. Chairman. I'll have to point it out. I'm sorry, the map didn't copy very well.
Okay.
Do you have any advice for us if citizens contact us that have been hooked up with GigaBeam and are no longer, they're having trouble with their service? Because I've had some, not necessarily in my district, but I've had several complaints because they know I'm on board and I don't really know what to tell them. They've reached out. They're not hearing back. I know we aren't either, but you know, for our citizens, what do we need to
Well,
tell them to reach out to one of these, just they've got some interest regardless of whether they're close to 58 or not?
I'm putting
Would it help their
together a packet of information because I'm getting inundated with people who are now saying the service with GigaBeam is altering.
Like
It's
it was
just-
great and now it's
It's
not.
going on and off and up and down. And so I would tell you to have them call me, because I'll put
Okay.
them in I mean, I don't have a quick answer, but my hope is we build a dossier of 150 to 200 customers.
Mhm.
And my intent is to, with his approval, to send that to DHCD with appropriate copies going to
To help
our
encourage
key
funding.
politicians and people to say, you gotta help us make these people do what they say they're gonna do. Because when they first started, everybody loved the service.
Mhm.
It was fast, it was reliable, and now, I mean, I don't have Gigabeam, but my neighbor does,
Mhm.
because I was 51 feet too far away. Look at that, Mr. Chair. And even they're saying, I mean, they've pounded on me across the pasture about, what do we do?
Mhm.
Because right now it's dropping every 2 or 3 times a day.
Yep.
Speeds aren't as good.
Did that arise after the storm?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So prior to the storm, it was.
It was working great.
Pretty good.
My understanding of the storm, it was out for a month, maybe. I'm not sure. It was for an extended period of time.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people that just went away from Gigabeam and went to Starlink if they had that option.
Well, I know some in our area that have switched to Starlink.
My other question is, with the BEAD funding,
Yes.
when will we know? When will,
Something about it.
yeah,
June.
We're supposed to know by the end of June which vendors have been selected by the state and awarded contracts for sections of our county. I'm still not sure why they require them to sign NDAs and not be forthright, but I talked to one of the vendors today and they said, Tom, I'd love to tell you what we're doing and not doing, but I signed the legal document with the state. And they tell me if I violate it and they find out, they'll rip my contract up and let me do business. And they're going to announce it supposedly the end of June, 1st of July.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we are with broadband. Now, again, the map's not real clear, but let's take a minute and look at this.
got some great Easter colors on it.
Well, they didn't start out that way, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Let's start on the left-hand side, which is the western part of the county, Pond Mountain. We were very fortunate that we negotiated with AEP the exchange of their tower, 140-foot tower that's on the side of Pond Mountain. They donated that to us for $1 if we could get the property owners to agree to transfer the lease, and we did. So that tower is now ours. We are planning to deploy 911 equipment on it, but no cell coverage on it. And we're also in discussions with Washington County. They would like to put equipment on it pointed towards Damascus to help cover that area, which is southeast Washington County, which frankly is a lot more like Grayson County than it is Washington County.
Mhm.
And the good thing is they'll pay us enough to pay off the lease on the land, so we kind of get a zero deal for the county in terms of cost on an annual basis.
What's the time frame on this being operational?
Shane Prescott, who has done a remarkable job thus far, who is a little frustrated with me because the towers aren't going up fast enough to help him keep his project moving at a pace that he wants it to move at. But he has talked to Procom, and instead of rolling out the entire plan east to west, Procom has agreed that they'll start, like for example, deploying equipment on Pond Mountain, and then they may go over here and put it on Point Lookout. So they'll do it as we have towers available, which is a little different than what they
And is
agreed
this
to.
equipment that we have to purchase new or that we already have, or?
Okay, we are purchasing equipment, and we'll go through that with the budget. But we're buying about $1.6 million of new equipment. And the tax exempt bonds, if you'll recall, the 2.5 million is being applied to the purchase of the 911 equipment. So that's covered. We also, it's a guaranteed contract. We already, I mean, they're not going to be overruns. We got a guarantee from Procom, the vendor that won the contract. And it pays for the grant to US Cellular for all of the cellular, wireless, and broadband equipment that goes on the 3 towers. That's a guaranteed price. So that's covered by the tax exempt bonds y'all approved a year and a half ago.
Okay.
Okay. Now, I list Walnut Knob, which you're familiar with, being over in the Bear Walla area, and Fees Ridge. We spent about 6 months talking to property owners on Fees Ridge, never could come to a deal. And as my wife, who's in the audience, would say, it was God's blessing, because if we had gotten one of those, we were looking at having to build a 8,000-foot road to get to it. And as I learned from US Cellular, at $100 a foot, our budget would have been blown, and we wasn't feasible. But when we were turned down, couldn't get any traction with property owners, we began to survey the maps, and about literally air miles, about a half a mile west, is a place called Walnut Knob. It is as tall as Fees Ridge, a lot smaller, but it's as tall. And I'm in the process of negotiating with that property owner now. And if we're successful, which I truly believe we will be, based on our conversations, the access road will be 1,400 feet. And that is well within the budget that was projected for tower construction. Plus, it gives us the elevation, and it's a site that doesn't require a lot of earth moving and retainer walls and all that sort of thing. So it looks like our linking tower for 911 and cell service will be Walnut Knob, and that's where we're pushing to get that. Quillen's Ridge, which is in the Rugby area, is where another US Cellular tower is going to be. And then I failed to mention, in the western end, we have a tower site identified on Park Road in White Top. So we have 2 of the 3 under contract. The third one, we're working on the contract today. So we have Park Road, Quillen's Ridge under contract for US Cellular towers. And then we're negotiating with the property owner on Walnut Knob for the 3rd tower. Moving east. Virginia Tech has a tower that they've had on the border of Smith County and Grayson County for about 20 years. They use it for a variety of purposes, radio, they do some public broadcasting off of it, etc. They have agreed to let us lease space for our 911 equipment. And the lease rate is $300 a month. Going rates are about 800 to 900, so it's a good deal. What that will do is it significantly improves our ability, Mr. Anderson, to get to Comer's Rock and the western part of Elk Creek, because it sits up pretty high right on that border, and will broadcast and kind of scatter over that area. So we're really excited about that. And as you'll hear about in a minute, Mr. Chairman, the equipment cost for that is going to be picked up through the COPS grant, which we'll also talk about, which was a federal grant that Carroll, Grayson, and Galax received to help with emergency communication equipment. Verizon is planning a tower. They have agreed. I've talked to them. We've sent them our specifications for equipment. They've agreed to let us go on that tower, and as they committed to you, they would do it for free. And what we're doing now is running the propagation maps to see if our expanded coverage from that tower is worth the $125,000 of equipment it would take to do it. I will tell you that equipment is also built into the COPS grant. So we're not going to be coming back to you asking for money for a tower that we had not planned on having.
Is US Cellular having discussions about putting anything on that Verizon tower?
No.
I didn't think so.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's only Verizon equipment or not.
Yeah.
So do the way that cellular technology works, does it have to be US Cellular equipment for US Cellular phones?
No.
No.
I thought they.
You can roam. You would be roaming.
That's right.
I thought they would talk to them about a specific device on there.
No, the only time you find a cellular company or multiple cellular companies on the same tower is when you have a density population of about 20,000 people or more. Because then there's enough market that they can kind of split it up
Yeah,
and it makes sense. But when you're sitting there with a potential 800 customers,
they're not gonna rent a space on that.
no, they're not gonna put anything up there. But anyway, so Verizon, we're doing our study on that now to see if we want to put equipment on it. And last but not least, Point Lookout, the new tower is up and the old tower is coming down. So that one is progressing nicely, and that would be one of the two first towers we would deploy our new radio equipment on, Mr. Chairman. Because that tower for the eastern part of the county serves like Walnut Knob does for the western.
Well, does this, with all of these here, does that fix our communication issue in the western end for 911?
98%. And honestly, in an area like ours, if you can get close to 90 to 95%,
Yeah.
you've hit a home run.
Time frame?
You'll see in a minute.
Okay, sorry.
Our plan is right now is to finish all the towers and all the equipment installation by August of 26, which is a year and 3 or 4 months. And since how you mentioned that, let me move to the timeline. It takes about 3 to 4 months to build a tower and an access road of 2,000 feet or less, which is what we budgeted for. And all of our 3 sites that we're working on now meet that. And it is a guaranteed max on the construction, so that any dollars we save, USA will then keep them. It comes back to us.
One of the things, Mr. Chair, you said in here a long time ago, the hardest part of this is going to be the language. You were spot on that. It has been more challenging than I expected it would be. The amount of energy and effort to go, meet these people and sit on their porches and talk them and then go back and forth. Yeah, I'll do it. No, I won't do it. Now my neighbor doesn't want me to do it. It's been unbelievable. And of course, Tom mentioned, Shane's frustration, and that, it's not because he's frustrated because he wants to get this done, because he hears it from the Ralph Norrises and everybody in the world that we still can't communicate. So
yeah, it's a worthy it's a worthy endeavor though.
but I can tell you from talking to US Cellular, they're like, hey, we would be nowhere on this project if we didn't lean in on it ourselves as a county, and really Tom doing the line share of the work on this. So anyway, just want to kind of frame that out a little bit. He's blowing through these things like, they're happening like it's just been a ton of work.
There's no question.
HOAs,
Thanks for all your work.
HOAs to the companies to individual personalities. It's been an endeavor, more than I thought it was going to be. But anyway.
Yeah, you begin to appreciate how the old timers in our county, particularly on the west end, because those are the ones I know. Y'all know the ones better on the east. But the land out there is more than just land to these people. It's family heritage. And when you consider that Fees Ridge is the south part of Mount Rogers, literally, with 58 running between them, there are a lot of families up here who did own a lot of property across the road. It was taken by the government. And anytime you start talking about leasing, acquiring, easements, particularly when you're talking about 80 years in length, people got a little squirrely. But I think we're where we need to be. My hope, Mr. Chairman, is we'll have the 3rd lease under contract before the end of this month. That's my plan. That's the goal.
Incredible, Tom.
So that's where we're headed. We are about 10 months behind. We lost about 6 to 7 months of the hurricane. I went out with US Cellular about 7 weeks after the hurricane, and we went to the 2 sites that we knew we already had, and there was no way to get to them. The debris, the trees, we would have to take helicopters to try to get in there. And so we lost time waiting on tree crews to help clear paths and right-of-ways and roads and other things. But as Mr. Boyer said, I would estimate we lost 4 to 5 months simply because we chased people all over Fees Ridge. And we had them agreeing, and then they'd call back the next day and say, I don't know, and back and forth. But be as it may, I feel like we're on a solid path now. I think we've got the relationships in place. US Sailor is geared up. They're already filing special permit information to us as a county, which you'll be seeing in the next month or so. And once we get those done, they'll start building a tower every 3 to 4 months to get them done. And they have the horsepower to do it, and they're sitting on hold waiting on the ability to get started. So that's a good thing.
Did the ice storm set you back some after?
Yes, it did. And you know, the irony is, I thought after the ice storm after the hurricane was over, we're actually having a tremendous problem in the western part of the county now with trees just falling.
Wind,
Because they're wet.
and
They're
they're already wet at the roots.
The root balls have been disturbed, and I mean, literally, it's almost every morning now you get out to go somewhere and there's trees laying across your road. So the ice storm didn't help us at all. Not at all. Now, the next item is the budget.
I just have one quick
Okay.
question. So
Yes.
just to clarify, all 7 of these towers are going to have 911 equipment on it for our
Okay.
county?
Not all 7.
Okay,
911 equipment will be on Pond Mountain, Walnut Knob, Point Lookout, Virginia Tech, and possibly on Verizon. Quillen's Ridge will not start with 911 equipment because our
We
problem,
have the right to,
we have,
we have the right to hang it. Okay.
yeah. And even the Park Road US Sailor Tower in downtown White Top, it will not initially have 911 equipment, but it is designed for it if we want to ever put it on there. But given that we got a $400,000 tower for $1, we're going to take advantage of it. So those are the towers.
so 4 for sure.
Yes. And Verizon is still in the process of being evaluated.
Okay.
But that tower will also be designed to have our equipment, whether we put it on there or not, so that if we ever want to come back and do that, we got the rights to do it.
So, Mr. Reynolds, the reason we're not committing to hanging it on there is we don't know that we need it.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I've learned a lot in this process, Mr. Chairman, and one of the things that I really enjoyed is working with US Sailor and their geospatial software. They can literally use satellites to identify the best places for towers to propagate every household within a geographic boundary. And so what they've done is help Shane and us do the same analysis for all of our 911 locations so that we can identify who can we reach, who can't we reach. But when this is over, I could probably get a list of names from them to say, Brantley Ivy's not covered. You probably ought to go talk to him about satellite because he's in a location that unless we put a tower on top of his house, is not going to happen. And that's less than 3% of our population, 2 to 3%.
Okay. Thank you, Tom.
Okay. The next item is the budget, and suffice it to say that we're with Nikki's help, we're managing that as closely as we possibly can. I wanted to highlight a couple of things on this schedule, just to refresh your memory. It is very important that as a county, we have to be able, at the end of the project, do an audit on tax exempt dollars spent. And those dollars can only be spent on the US Sailor grant and the radio equipment for 911. And that totals about $2.6, $2.7 million. So Nikki has set up a special accounting schedule, and I do the first review on every invoice. She does a second review, and then we categorize it. Because we want to make sure when the time comes for the audit, all we have to do is hand them a document and say, here, go for it, figure it out. Now, remember, the tower construction comes out of county money. That is not tax exempt, and it can't be tax exempt. We will own the towers. We pay for the towers, and a good portion of that money is coming out of the tax levy assessment of 1 cent that was approved by this board, I think now back in 2020, actually. And so each year that's been accumulating. And as of this current fiscal year, that's about $900,000. So that's a source of funding that's going to help push that tower construction. That is a guaranteed maximum number that US Cellular says they'll build our 3 towers and do the site development for. There is about a 20% margin in there for things you don't expect. Like on Quillen's Ridge, we got to build a little retaining wall. It's about 40 grand. Nobody anticipated that. So that comes out of that money. But my hope is that we beat that number. And as I said again, we approve all the invoices from US Cellular. And if we beat the number, the money comes back to us. Doesn't go in their pockets.
So we don't pay that money up front.
No. They give us an invoice,
We pay it,
we pay it.
and the $900,000 stays in our account until this project is done, not to exceed the 1.2.
1.2 million.
Yeah, okay.
Exactly. And we have the right, I mean, I've already started kind of getting geared up for this. I have a right to go on any site, on any construction job, and verify that things they've said are done, so that we can keep good control. I mean, I've been really impressed with US Cellular, don't get me wrong. It's been compared to our former vendor for fiber, this company is like working with the best ever. Their people are professional. If they tell you they're going to do something, they do it. And believe me, they kind of hold our feet to the fire on details, because that's kind of how they live. And so I'm really looking forward to getting the towers under construction, because I think we'll be amazed at how quickly they go and how efficient they are in putting them up. But as you can see on this, the blue indicates when we expect to pay the US Cellular grant. It's literally in 3 lump sum payments over a period of 5 months. And you see the radio equipment, we have already bought $813,000 of radio equipment. We have 2 more payments of $413,000. One will be coming up actually pretty soon as they start deployment and implementation. And then the last payment, we only pay half of it, and then we get an engineer to certify that it's built as designed, and then they get the rest of their money. So I think we've got some good checks and balances in place, and we intend to make sure we get our money's worth out of this project. I know I kind of blew through that, but I know y'all got another meeting coming up. Any questions, anything, and if you come up with any, just please email me, call me, text me, whatever.
Yeah, I get a lot of calls, particularly from the West End, fire and rescue agencies, about how terrible the radio system is and really hard to get out. So I take it as we're going to try to start in the Western End first. Do you know a time frame on when we could start seeing improvements?
I'm expecting improvements in the White Top, Rugby area by midsummer.
By midsummer.
Because deployment of the equipment will take about 45 days, according to Procom, that's going to do the install. And we're projecting they'll start installation sometime mid-May to late May. It's been surprising at how long it's taken to get some of this equipment. I mean, all this equipment was ordered last October, and we're still getting equipment in. It's just backlog on equipment.
And we also tried, Shane tried to use Starlink as a way to enhance the system. It didn't seem to help. So we did try to buy a couple more systems to have some type of temporary fix.
So we're really not, we're out of temporary fixes until we get this up and going.
Well, we have one more fix.
Oh, yeah, we got
Temporary fix.
temporary mobile.
Shane found that in Tazewell County, they have 2 mobile Army telescopic radio towers on wheels that are 90 feet tall. And they collapse down, fold over, and become a 35-foot trailer, basically. They have given those to us. And I got a call today, as a matter of fact. I've got arranged to get the trucker over there to pick them up and bring them over here. But Shane is working on a plan with Procom to try to use both those towers in the Rugby White Top area as a temporary relay station to try to help with radio communications. I mean, I don't want to state this because Shane would have the most accurate numbers, but I can tell you, the radios in White Top and Rugby, they're worse than worse.
Oh, yeah,
They're terrible.
The handhelds are pretty much
They're terrible.
inoperable.
They're terrible.
So as far as that temporary fix, do you know a possible time frame on how long that would get up?
I do not, but believe me, we're gonna go pick those two towers up and get them over here. And I know Shane's ready to try to put something in place and to work with those folks to take
Okay.
care of.
Thank you.
And those were given by Tazewell County?
Yeah, Tazewell bought them 4 years ago from the Army. It was Army surplus. They used them for a flood incident that occurred in Tazewell County. Then they've been sitting in their sheriff's parking lot for 2 years, not being used. Shane found out about them, told me to call the sheriff. I did. Greg Hash also helped me with that from our sheriff's office. And they agreed that if we want them, we could have them. We had to file some paperwork with the Army.
Reuse
Yeah.
items, and so we're not DOD reuse approves, we go to the sheriff's office.
Yeah.
So
So
I'll email you as soon as.
Yeah, keep me updated on that. I'm sure you pass that along to the fire and rescue guys.
We're hoping that'll be a little temporary fix.
exactly.
Thank you for that.
I mean, Mr. Cornell, Shane is he is really working hard to try to creatively figure out how do we get a temporary fix to get these towers up. Because the total system will not operate efficiently until Walnut Knob goes up. We could build every other tower. Until that one goes up to link, we're gonna be limping. So that's one reason we're pushing so hard on Walnut Knob.
And that's also the one that's latest projected to be built out, correct?
Correct.
Because we haven't finalized the lease with Walnut.
No,
But we're
I'm
just-
hoping we'll have it finalized by the end of this month. I think 2 more porch visits will make it happen. Okay, COPS grant. This is a federal law enforcement grant that was filed for about 2 years ago. GALAX is the agency that is sort of the prime agency for the grant, administering it. And Carroll County, Grayson, and the city of GALAX are all participants in the grant. It's a $3 million grant. If you look at this, 1.3 million of the money is being spent for regional radio improvements. For example, total revamping of CCOM, the 911 main system, both at the city of GALAX, which serves the region, but also at the Sheriff's Department in Carroll, the Sheriff's Department here. Recorders. Right now, we don't have reliable recorders, so that anytime you call 911, they may not have a recording that you called. And that's not good. But once this is done, and it's in process right now, we will have recorders, just like any first-class organization would have. Carroll County, in the original grant, was allocated $859,000. Part of that incorporates bringing Hillsville into the system, but that's coming through Carroll County's allocation of money. City of GALAX, $263,000, Grayson County, $541,000. Out of our money, we have microwave equipment for 2 more towers and other equipment. Supervisor Cornett, you are so involved in the fire and rescue. We're upgrading our ability to do, wilderness searches and things like that. So we're increasing our mobile command capabilities. And actually, one of the things that we filed for, which the state recommended, is a system where every person who goes out on a wilderness search has a GPS unit. And the commander of that search has a screen in front of them and can tell you everywhere those people are. and therefore through the radio can kind of redirect based on the maps that they have.
Is that powered off of the Starlink?
It's off the GPS system.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the allocation. I did give you just a very high level breakdown of the kinds of equipment on the last page that each entity is going to be getting. But it's it really is going to help finish out our system.
When are these funds available? Have we already started purchasing some of this equipment?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
We have to close this grant out April of 26. But honestly, I think we'll have most of the purchasing completed by June. And then you're waiting for equipment to show up, so you're still holding money to pay when receipts come in. So that's where we are. Questions?
Did you say individual GPS for every,
No, anybody that would
just when
be
they are going on search and rescue?
on a search and rescue. And you know, people, I don't think most of us understand how frequently that occurs, particularly in the western part of the county.
Right.
There is forever crazy people going out on Mount Rogers in weather, in shorts and blue jeans. And they get stuck, they get lost, they get hurt. And our rescue guys end up crawling all over the mountain 2 or 3 days trying to find these people. I mean, this happened 3 weeks ago.
There's one this week, actually. Last few days.
Mr. Reynolds, thank you for catching us up to speed. If y'all have any other questions, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Motion is second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'm also aye. Very good. Thank you for that.